Next to her is Terry Erdman. And then Dave McDonald. And George Takei sitting next to him. And next to George is Kate O'Treese, who is the other half of our family. And last but not least, Roy O'Treese on the end of it. And yes, the crowd is in excellent voice this evening. Good. Everybody's tuned up, ready to go. Okay. If this thing gets any more complicated with what people have written down, we're going to have a spiral notebook for each one of the contestants here. All right. Okay, we had a Masters category this year, and there was only one entrant. However, there's more than one person in there, so there won't really be any judging for this category. So we decided to get them on and get them off quickly. And well, it's kind of hard to judge if it's one entry, but it's like 8 or 9 people. They're all standing, and they have got names that, believe me, I'll murder these just royal, so, you know, I'll teach them. I mean, they brought their own music. I have this thing over here, and so, let's see what we've got here. Okay, we got 9 million people standing back there, so this is a category that we don't really sort of count, so. Are you guys going to stand or are you going to get out of the way? All right. Okay, what we have here, I'll read the characters first and then we'll tell you who they really are. If they really want you to know that at the end here. 2 pages worth of instructions here. Okay, this is from Empire, The Next Generation. And these are the members of the Klingon Imperial Diplomatic Service, and it says "Start music here." All right. This is another. Oh, it's queued up. Okay, this is number 1 in a continuing series. Lieutenant Commander Kether Vestai Simpari. They gotta have 3 words, 15 syllables long. This is the ambassador. It's quivering up here, it's okay. The ambassador's chief of security. Number 2. Let's run out and join the Marines, folks. This is Marine Captain Maim Vestai, USMEC, Ship's Ordnance Officer. Commander Aztecs Sutai Kinkakwi. I'll try eating the pizza before I read these, maybe this will help. That's the ship's executive officer and consort of Maine. There's another one there already. Okay, Lieutenant Klutz Vestai Aparaki, the ambassador's anti-social secretary. You're going to have to move over sort of this way into the front so that everyone can see you. Walk right up in the center up there now. Make room, because those other people behind you won't get out there if you don't. Stop, okay. Where is number 6 in the continuing series? Okay. Why don't you step up there right by the big blue X, and we won't tell you what's going to happen. Captain Clinch Sutai Simpari, commander of the Imperial Klingon vessel Stormwalker and first female ship's captain. Okay, Captain Kamalan Sutai Eparaki, the ambassador's cultural attaché and consort of Clinch. So that's what you do in a clinch. That's one. And presenting the ambassador herself, Kama Epetai Eparoki. I'll bet you they ain't got a lounge up front. Okay, now wait a minute now. Okay. As they merely run off the stage, among the groups, so they don't give you any place to put the names with, but there was Jean, Dooney, Mike and Rochelle, Rachel, Maylee, Pierre and Sandy, Pettinger, Rebecca Nelson. Okay, walk right up to the blue square. Blue square made with an X up here. Okay. This is Jim Humble as Baby Blue Death in red high tops. And you thought that eating the pizza was harmless. Wearing them. Take him by the arm now. Brett Wilmot is a pre-lunar wolf man.
Guys, I'm sorry, I went out to Korea. I just got back this morning from the Olympics. All I can say is I still gotta be out of Korea time. I don't know. Sorry, guys.
That's going to be an easy category to judge, folks. Okay, that was all for the horror category, and the second guy was the most horrible thing I've ever seen. Okay, now we're going to move into the children's category. You say that now, but okay. Like I said, there's something that's going to get a little bit of everybody this evening. Okay, numbers 1 are Heather and Amanda Thompson as Mr. Sulu's children. I bet you we could send this tape to a lot of people. This is what George does on his summer vacation. All right. Number 2, Matt Clarison as a brownie from Willow. Easy down those stairs back there. Okay, number 3, Robert Goodwin, Cowboy Hoka. Okay. By the way, all the children are going to win tonight. Okay, number 4 is Jacob Moorhead as a Buccaneer. And number 5, William Dawson as a baby Ewok. Okay, that was all in the children's category. Ooh. Okay, the next category is literary science fiction. Oh. See if you can figure this one out. This is Charlie Cockett, number 1. Come on up, and I want to see if you can guess what he's... And there will be a test later. Did you miss one? I don't have a mic. The costume. Warrior. Okay, number 4 is Darren Ghost as Blackjack O'Hare. Plug him in and see what kind of reception we get in the back. Got the best set of rabbit ears I've ever seen. I gotta make sure you guys are in shape for the play, you know. Okay, number 5 is Steve Stanley. Termite, that's how he spelled it, is a termite warrior. I got 4 different... Yes, one number 7. That was number 7. Number 7. Oh, wait a minute. Now, yes, sir, I'm sorry. You're right. I'm looking at number 7 in front of me here. I can't read my writing even when it's rotten road. Okay, number 7. This is number 7. Coming up, Roger Singer as the Joker. And that's probably the best meal you folks will get all day. Rubber chicken, rubber pizza. Okay, number 8, Glenn Worstler as Hot Black.
When you and the sun die, don't worry about it, just stay in the ground and I'll be fine.
Disruptors and Daisies. Let's see how technologically advanced they really are. Queued up. I forgot the batteries too.
That's my kind of thing. I smoked this since a meal before I started to sing.
Okie dokie. Yes, folks, if you need your laundry done, their foreheads are available for a small fee. Get a bucket of ice and an old towel, and you two can play down by the rocks in the river. Okay, number 2, Brian Seabrandt and Margaret Polson as Roger Rabbit and Jessica. Just like a man who just had over a woman. Number 3, Jennifer Hall. Tara, pronounced just like Tara. Go put a ramp up next year. We can probably get her about 60 miles an hour by the time. Okay, in keeping with the theme of reruns, courtesy of the writers.
half a mile seed, well over 2,000 people, all people that were involved in the space shuttle project and other members of the NASA operation. And they had a stage built, and the keynote speaker was Senator Barry Goldwater, who was the chairman of the committee that funded the project. And the Star Trek family was seated somewhere out there in the second row near the front. I guess Barry Goldwater was told that the first space shuttle was named after the Enterprise on Star Trek, but he wasn't told that we were there. So Barry Goldwater, when he launched into his keynote address, made some eloquent statements, and then, as an aside, he noted that it's named after the USS Enterprise of the television series Star Trek, and so perhaps they should start recruiting for pointy-eared astronauts. Well, right on cue, Leonard Nimoy, Roosevelt. And he was smiling in an unspock-like smile. And he said, "Well, here I am, Mr. Senator. Barry Goldwater looked down and recognized Leonard, and you know, he was taken really off guard. He started to sputter. Ooh! Oh! I think that's probably the first time in his political career that Barry Goldwater was speechless. And he sputtered on like that for a while, you know, and then finally he said, Spock! And then they finally got his wits back, and he paid a gracious tribute to Leonard Nimoy. And then he noticed that the rest of us were seated there, and he wasn't going to be caught off guard anymore, so he said some nice things about all of us. And then he recognized Gene Roddenberry, who was there. And then the moment of the rollout came, and believe me, it was a deeply moving experience for all of us to see this craft that's going to be making that pioneering journey out there, roll out, leaning in the sun, and to see beside it written the word Enterprise, and the Marine Band started to play, and they were playing the theme from Star Trek. So to hear that, and this experience, this historic experience, you gave to us also. You know, we're just common working actors. And, you know, it may seem like, you know, a very specialized kind of activity, but really we just get up in the morning and drive to the factory and we punch in. The factory happens to be called Paramount Studios, but we punch in and we do our work and we punch out. And for people like us to be invited to participate in that human event, that historic event, is a very, very special experience. And you gave us that gift. So thank you for that special gift also. So you know when in Star Trek fandom we say live long and prosper, we really have lived much, much longer than we ever expected. You know, when we were canceled after 3 years, we thought that was it. We were great, we would gracefully fade away. We have lived already for 23 years, and now I fully expect to double that. And we have prospered in many, many more ways than the obvious ones. And you have given us great richness, great wealth, and experiences like that are part of it. We have indeed lived long and prospered, and I hope that we've given you some kind of longevity and prosperity, as well as the fact that you've given us such a wonderful gift. So this is a very meaningful reading for us, I think. Live long and prosper. Thank you for the wealth that you've given us, and thank you for the longevity that you've given us. We really are indebted to you for that. The dialogue part is the fun part at these conventions. So why don't we begin that? If you'll raise your hand, well, let's begin with you. Yes.
Two questions I'd like to ask is, do you find yourself ever sit down and watch some of the old series? And what do you think?
Please, the originals. Well, as I said, I've been out of the country most of this year. I've been here altogether just about 2 months this year. So I haven't seen any of the original series. But whenever I get the opportunity to do it, it's a little bit of nostalgia. Yes, I do peek in on it. Yes, right up front. Great. Well, thank you. And, yes, I had great fun with Naked Time and the fencing part, and I'm glad that I've been able to open that door for you. That's the wonderful thing about Star Trek. You know, it's a mutual thing. You know, you gave me, or you're very young, so you weren't there then. You're one of those people that prove that there's life after cancellation. But you know, Star Trek gave me a lot of unique opportunities, like fencing on television. But if I can return that to you, I think it's been a wonderful giving and taking of sharing of this wonderful thing called the Star Trek experience. Yes, back there. The question is, what kind of following does Star Trek have overseas? It's enormous, and it really is international. The reason why I keep getting cast in things in Great Britain is because Great Britain is a huge hotbed of Star Trek fandom. There are Star Trek conventions happening there practically every other month, and I've done about 5 conventions in England, and there are conventions held in Germany and France. There are a network of fan clubs in Switzerland, in Germany, and France, certainly throughout Great Britain, in Australia. That's another very big place for Star Trek. Japan is another very popular place. It's another place where Star Trek is very popular. It is an international phenomenon, and I can be walking down the Piccadilly or down the Ginza in Japan, in Tokyo, or in the Philippines. That's another place where Star Trek is very popular. So it really is an international phenomenon. Right there.
Yes. I was wondering, I read in an article about a year or so ago that you had participated in what I guess was to be a fan-produced movie under George Takei. Can you give us a little information on that, how you felt about working with that?
Yeah, this was, about 4 or 5 years ago. This young man phoned me up. He was a film student, and he had this Star Trek script, and he asked whether I would help him out. And I said, oh, sure, I'd be happy to do that. It was a student film that I did originally, but then it came off quite well. And kind of encouraged by the success that he had with this, he decided to expand on it, and he started shooting more scenes, and he started asking other actors to do it. And he decided to take it beyond just the classroom situation, and he started showing it at various other places where an audience would gather. And then I heard that he was charging admission to that. I did that as a favor for a student film, and I am a union member. The Screen Actors Guild is a union, and that would be considered working out of my union's jurisdiction, and I could get into trouble. So I have to tell him that if he's charging admission, then he has to, we have to have a different kind of agreement. But I did it as a favor for you, and why don't we keep it on that basis? You can show the movie, but it's got to be for no admission. Otherwise, it gets me in trouble with the Screen Actors Guild. And he did agree to that. So it may be shown at some of these conventions, but do make sure that you get to see it for free. If you have to pay, let me know. Episode, that movie. Well, yes, as a matter of fact, I did, but it wasn't the kind of input that you thought. I was reading that script when it first arrived, and I saw that line, and I immediately got on the phone with Har Bennett, who wrote that line. And I said, Har, we've got to talk. Can we have lunch at the studio? And he said, sure. And I got together with Har, and I said, Har, now, it's a wonderful script, and you've written some wonderful things, and that sequence is absolutely soothing. But that line, don't call me tiny, now that's not soothing. You've got to believe me, Har. I've been to all the conventions, and I know how, the audience thinks. Sulu is not not tiny. Sulu is not that kind of thing. He would never say those. And Harv said, I don't believe it. George, am I hearing what I'm hearing? It's a delightful line. I mean, it's going to really win over. It's the scene stealer of a line. I said, Harv, listen, trust me. I know there's a little pride of authorship there, and I may be treading on very sensitive grounds, but you know, Harv, let me tell you, the audience will not accept that line. You've got to trust me on this. I know my character, I know the audience. We've got to cut that line. Sulu is not tiny. You know, it was really my ego that was coming into play. I tried and tried, and when the bill came out, I said, Harv, I'm going to pay for this. I'm going to pay for this, but you have to reciprocate by cutting that line. Even that, so what the compromise we finally arrived at was, Harv said, all right, George, I understand how you feel, let's do it this way. Why don't we shoot that film? And, you know, do bring all your professionalism to it, despite the fact that you feel the way you do. And then let's judge on the basis of how the scene plays. So I actually tried to give them input where I wanted that line cut, believe it or not. And thank God, actors don't always win. Well, I don't want to speak with my colleagues, and certainly Gene is so eloquent that I don't want to paraphrase his words, but let me give you my thoughts on Star Trek and why it's lasted so long. I think, you know, we obviously subscribe to the notion that Star Trek is good. What made it so good? I see it as a show that has a lot of layers to it. You know, like an onion, you can peel off one layer, there's another that you can find. On the surface, it's a very, very good action-adventure series, and it engaged the audience on that level. You peel that level off, and it was very imaginative science fiction. It was probably the first television series, regular weekly series on television, that dealt with science fiction as a genuine literary form, as opposed to, you know, there are so many science fiction shows, so-called science fiction shows, that were essentially fairy tales in space, you know, but they didn't deal with science fiction notions like time accelerated, or the existence of another, you know, negative universe, or or aging rapidly. You know, those science fiction notions were really explored with the sensibilities and the imagination of a science fiction writer. And we had some very fine writers. So on that level, it was very, very good, fresh, original, imaginative science fiction. You peel that level off. And then there's, for those that were interested in the technological aspect, it was speculation on the technological future that was rooted in the legitimate thinking, the legitimate speculation of the scientists and the technologists of that time. So on that level, it intrigued the audience's imagination. You peel that level off, and we get to another level that to me was very, very satisfying. It made some commentary on the human condition and also on the political conditions. The 1960s were a very, very turbulent time for this country, and most of television wasn't dealing with it. Here the country was burning up, you know, the civil rights crisis, the Vietnam War, the advent of the hippie culture. You know, it was a time of great ferment, burning ferment in this country, and television was reflective of that. But albeit disguised as science fiction, we dealt with those issues. And for those that wanted to, you know, dig deeper and have their minds stimulated on those social and political and environmental issues, it was there to intrigue their mind on that level. But at the very core, I think, it had a very positive, affirmative commentary on the human future. That, you know, despite the fact that we were in a Cold War and we had all these problems that seemed awesome and insurmountable, that our society would change forever, never, you know, we retain those values and view. What Star Trek said was, if we have confidence in the human capacity for problem solving, for our ability to invent, for our ability to create, and for the compassion, the capacity for compassion that we have for each other. If we can respect each other and indeed recognize that we're interdependent on each other, despite differences. In fact, it's those very differences that's our strength. Then we will prevail, and we will go to that 23rd century future. It was a very, very positive statement to be made at a time when there was a great deal of gloom and doom. And for all these reasons, I think Star Trek was able to connect and reach an audience, and to be able to survive as long as it has. Right. I thought you had your head. No, you didn't. All right. Right.
It's November when they had the sneak preview here in Colorado of the Star Trek 4. They had the whole movie. When they re-released it a few months later, they took the one scene out that I thought was one of the best, where you met your ancestors. Are they going to be able to release this with that scene back in or not?
I don't think they showed it with that scene because we weren't able to shoot it.
We saw it in the sneak preview that came in November, but we went to see it about 6 months later in the regular houses.
Well, you know what? That was in the script. And there was a little boy that when we shot that, or that scene was scheduled to be shot on location in San Francisco. There was a little boy cast out of San Francisco, not out of Hollywood. And when we got there to shoot that scene, the child was about 6 or 7 years old. And the child's mother was a real intense stage mother. And, you know, the child was really cute when we made the test. The test was made in a very controlled, calm office situation with a video camera. But when you're shooting on location, you have the chaos, the noise, the frenzy, you know, the traffic going, equipment being dragged on, a lot of extras, a lot of crew people. The child was gotten up early in the morning, and, you know, he had makeup put on him, and there were people patting at his face, and he was dressed in clothes that weren't his own, you know. And so the kid froze up on us, and we begged, we pleaded, and we cajoled, but we just couldn't get a performance out of that child. As a matter of fact, you know, the situation wasn't helped any by his mother, because I was going back to my dressing room trailer, and I crossed this alleyway, and the mother was there spanking that little boy because he was performing, you know. And I walked into the alley and said to her, please don't do that. You know, you're not helping the situation any, and why traumatize that child any more than he is by doing that to him? And she was a little embarrassed, and she let him go, and the kid ran off crying, you know. But we just couldn't shoot that scene. And when you're shooting on location, time is important. You know, the production manager kept looking up at the sky, and the sun was moving down, and Leonard kept looking at his watch like this too. And we just couldn't get a performance of that child. It got dark, and we just couldn't shoot. So we never did shoot that scene. So I don't know what it was that you saw, but we didn't shoot it though. I don't know what it is you saw. Well, the kid was supposed to have been my great-great-great-grandfather. I wish I could see it too. I was there on the location site, and I don't know what it was that you saw. I did do an episode of Twilight Zone, and maybe that's what it was. Well, we'll have to talk. Yes. And there, you know, the thing that we have to watch in fandom is so many people take upon themselves the power and authority to do something that Gene Roddenberry really created. And so people have written novels and or have announced things in books where you know, they themselves, without consulting Gene, have given characters names or given characters their history, etc. And so you may have read many, many different sorts of names that other people have given Sulu, but they have not been authorized by Gene Roddenberry. The name that Gene Roddenberry gave to Sulu is Hikaru, H-I-K-A-R-U. And he got that from a classic Japanese novel that was written in the 16th century about, it's one of those epic novels about two warring clans, two lords, you know, that were warring with each other, and the war continues for generations, you know, like 3 or 4 generations, and finally this young prince appears from one side, who is a great martial artist, a great strategist, a great, you know, planner of battles and so forth. But he's also a visionary and a peacemaker, and he finally brings peace to this two warring clan. And his name was Prince Hikaru. The translation of that name is the shining light. And Gene thought that would be an appropriate name for Sulu, so that's the name that Gene Roddenberry gave him. However, I know you will read many, many different other names, but they are not Sulu's name, and they are not authorized by Gene Roddenberry, the real father of the Star Trek world. Let's go here. Yes, I did a movie titled Green Berets with John Wayne way back. I believe even that movie is 21 years old. We shot it in '67, and here it is, '88. So, you know, I feel very aged now. I got to tell you, California child labor laws require that my mother be on the set for Star Trek and Green Berets. I was a child actor, you know. Working with John Wayne is an experience. He is, you know, a legend, and he is certainly bigger than life. And working on that film, that was a John Wayne production. It was a Bat-Jack production, and that's his company. The executive producer was his son, Michael Wayne. John Wayne directed it, and we had a script written by Claire Huckner, but he threw it out, and he was making up the dialogue as we were shooting it. You know? So it was really a John Wayne production, and to have worked with that kind of Hollywood legend was a very, very unique and special experience. I must say, it's one that will live with me for the rest of my career. Way back there, yes.
We're talking about the flying authors before. I was wondering how your own writing coming along.
How what?
How was your writing coming along?
Oh, well, as I've kind of sketched out, I've been very busy with my acting career now. I've got a couple of writing projects percolating on my desk, but you know, when I'm going from one project to the other, an acting project to the other, and those projects take me from one place, one part of the world to another, it's difficult to keep up my writing. Writing is something that takes concentrated effort and, well, mental concentration. And here I'm, you know, looking forward to starting another movie next month. So my writing, I must say, is on the back burner at this point. But it is an activity that I love very much, I find very fulfilling. And I will have more literary works coming at me. So yes, do keep looking for my Pride of Authorship lines, my bylines, and other novels upcoming. I did write a magazine article on my experiences working on Return from the River Kwai. I don't know whether you get that magazine in the Denver area or not. I know it's a national magazine, but it's essentially an Asian American magazine. It's called ASEAN. And I wrote this article for that magazine. It may be available here. You might have to ask around at some of your booksellers here. But I know it's available in New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, San Francisco, the major cities. And I'd like to think Denver is a major city too. So do look for ASEAN, their November issue, in which I had an article about the making of Return to the River Kwai. Yes, right here. This was back in 1965 when I was cast for the pilot film. I was a struggling young actor in Hollywood at the time, so my feeling was work, money, a paycheck. And it was a pilot film for a regular, for a series, a pilot film for what could, if it's sold, become a series. So work continuity, a regular paycheck coming in. So it was as basic as that. Oh, the Star Trek movie, 1978 when we shot that. The feelings then, well, it was mixed because the revival of Star Trek was much vaunted, much talked about, much announced, and often aborted. The first revival of Star Trek was supposed to happen in 1974. It was supposed to be a television series again. And so it was February of '74 that we were supposed to get started. So we got all excited about it. We're being revived as a TV series again. Wouldn't that be exciting? And then as we got closer to that date, they said, we're going to postpone. And so, our hopes were dashed. And then the following year, the word came up that, or it was a rumor that we were going to become a series of movies of the month. 1 2-hour episode per month. And we thought, oh, what a great idea. Of course, that would be much better than a 1-hour series on a weekly basis, because then we could concentrate more, there'd be a larger budget. So we got all excited about that. A movie of the week, or a movie of the month kind of thing. Wouldn't that be exciting? And as we got closer to that date, that again was postponed. And so that kind of thing kept going on and on, year after year, from 1974. And so finally, when they announced that date in 1978, we thought, yeah, I'm sure, we'll believe it when it happens, And as we got closer and closer to that date, we weren't getting phone calls saying we're going to cancel or we're going to postpone. And we thought, well, I guess we better start memorizing those lines. And when they finally called to ask us to come in for wardrobe fittings, we thought, then they meant it. And on that first day that we began work on Star Trek, the motion picture, it was a heady experience. To get back together with all the people that would work together with, so wonderfully. And we thought that we'd never be back together like this again. The fact that we were able to get together, the fact that we were in that familiar circular setting of the bridge, and the fact that we were working on Star Trek, it was a wonderful feeling, and that it was a memorable day. Yes, right there. I'll tell you everything I know that I can tell you about we start shooting on the 11th of October. We begin on location in Yosemite National Park. And then we go from there to Death Valley. And we shoot in Death Valley for a while. And Harm hopes to be back at the studio by late October. And as he puts it, certainly by early November. They can't give specific dates when you're shooting on location because, you have delays or other problems. but we hope to be back certainly by the beginning of November, and we'll be shooting back to Paramount Studios until early January. The film is planned to be out in the summer of '89. This is going to be directed by Bill Shatner, with a script by Harv Bennett and another writer whose name I can't recall. It's going to be a good Star Trek, and I hope you'll go out and support it. And please don't try to wheedle out of me any more beyond that. We all have to take an oath with Paramount Studios. And I do intend to live long and prosper with Paramount. But I don't think most of you want me to tell you anyway, because you know that'd be ruining the surprise for you. You want to go to the theater and oh wow. I guess one more thing I could slip out to you. Next week I begin my riding lessons, horseback riding lessons. Yes. In what capacity? Oh, he's with the city of Los Angeles. I see. Well, Metro Rail is being built by the Southern California Rapid Transit District, SCRTD, and we certainly work in close cooperation with the City of Los Angeles Planning Department, as well as the County of Los Angeles Transportation Department. I see.
Number two, basically, if you were to improve Star Trek to the next generation, all our devices, what do you do?
Well, you know, frankly, I've got to be honest with you. As I said, I've been out of the country so much, I really haven't seen enough episodes to be able to intelligently and fairly make suggestions along that vein. But you know, I had a very interesting experience coming back from London this trip about 10 days ago. I went from Edinburgh. After the play closed, I kind of wended my way down to London by train, going to York, Windermere, Reading, and then London. And I flew out of London. I flew British Airways, got on board and sat down, and you know, it's a long flight. I think it's about 10 hours, 11 hours from London to Los Angeles. So I bought a nice book to read on the flight, and I noticed the man next to me, a bald-headed man, bent over and dragged a thick biography of Oscar Wilde out of his carry-on bag. So I noted, oh, this person must be interested in theater. And I read for about an hour, and then I got up to go to the restroom and came back and looked at the man seated next to me for an hour, silently reading. And that profile looked an awful lot like Patrick Stewart. And I sat down, and I studied the profile some more, and he was just serenely reading. And I decided, yeah, I'll check it out. And I said, excuse me, aren't you? And he turned around and looked at me and says, why, aren't you? We had never met before, and that was the first time we met. He'd been back in London vamping time while the writer's strike was settled, and you know, I was doing this play, and we were both coming home, and I was a little bit with British Airways because I always liked no smoking window. Well, certainly on that international flight, there's no smoking window. I wanted. Did I do something? Somebody pull the plug. Oh, here I am. And they had changed me. You know, we were seated in the area right behind that center island where they have the flowers and the magazines. You know, and so we kind of started comparing notes. You know, I wonder how it is. What coincidence the two of us are seated together. And he said he likes the bulkhead, and they had moved him too. So we think that there was some Klingon working for British Airways. And they saw our names on the manifest, and they decided to be a little mischievous. And I found him a charming and delightful man, and very engaging conversation with us. But I got to tell you just one other thing. When we landed in Los Angeles, the voice came over the speaker and it said, we are going to announce this to you now because we've landed, but we didn't want to announce this to you while in flight. One of our engines went out and we flew across the Atlantic and over America on only 3 engines. If they had only known that they had a 23rd century helmsman and a 24th century captain of a Starcon. Did I get his autograph? You know something we never thought to ask each other. We said, you know, we'll have lunch together at Paramount in the commissary. Right here.
I've got a question for you. First of all, know that this is a lot of details, and know that really that you're not about right. You have to like that. And I'd like to make some comments about that. Also, there's a lot of looking for your part.
The last part of this observation was with all the problems that the airlines have been having, am I going to start riding buses? Well, it's kind of difficult to go by bus to London unless they invent some special kind of vehicle. But let me respond this way to you on that. I devoutly and earnestly pray for the early invention of the transporter. The other part of your commentary was on Baba Black Sheep that I did some time ago. One little thing of pride that I'd like to tag on to that, I got an Emmy nomination for that performance in Baba Black Sheep. Star Trek vein, I got a Grammy nomination, a kind of nomination that, you know, a legitimate actor never expects, because Grammys are won by rock stars, you know. But some of you may know that I've been recording Star Trek novels on audio cassettes. And last year I read Vonda McIntyre's novelization of Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home. And that got me a Grammy nomination. So when I was back in England in February, I have just been given the high side, so I can get only one last question, and let me call on the young lady in front here for that. The question is, does the fact that I'm taking horseback riding lessons indicate that we'll be seeing more of Sulu? To that I gotta answer, no, it just indicates that you will see Sulu riding a horse-like creature in Star Trek V, but essentially the script is